Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower.
Yeah.
Today we are embarking on an analysis of well, a truly groundbreaking military concept.
Absolutely.
It's a strategic blueprint built on this ruthless premise that in the 21st century, time, it's not just a factor in conflict.
No.
It is the sole, non-negotiable determinant of success.
Yeah.
We are talking about making speed the ultimate weapon.
It's a compelling concept, because it directly confronts the historical Achilles heel of nearly every major multinational alliance.
Which is what? Inertia.
Strategic inertia, exactly. The time it takes for a coalition to achieve consensus to mobilize and then to actually deploy.
Right.
That time, that window, is often the exact period in which a crisis metastasizes into an unstoppable disaster. This whole blueprint, it aims to eliminate that delay.
Completely. And to ground this deep dive, we're focusing specifically on a highly detailed vision for multinational military integration. We're looking at excerpts from the book The Nuclear Umbrella, and specifically this is episode 36, written by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir. And this material, it lays out the operational strategy for what he terms the Muslim NATO Rapid Deployment Force, or RDF.
Our mission today is pretty clear, though. We need to unpack the precise structure, the very demanding operational doctrine, and the legal framework that defines this RDF.
It's a force designed not just for a quick response, but for deployment within a window of hours.
Hours, not days. It turns it into the geopolitical equivalent of a rapid action fire suppression system.
Speed with legitimacy. I think that's the core thesis here, isn't it? It's deeply strategic.
It has to be.
The goal is an intervention that is so rapid, so effective, that it stabilizes the situation before the warring parties.
Be they states or non-state actors.
Right, before they can establish irreversible facts on the ground.
Yeah.
The success is measured in crises contained, not wars won.
And if you look at the strategic history of, the last few decades, deterrence is failing.
Why do you think that is?
Because potential aggressors, they assume they have a window of opportunity. They think they have a 72-hour period, maybe a week, in which they can seize territory, decapitate a leadership structure, or commit mass atrocities before the world, or any major alliance can respond meaningfully.
So the RDF, just by existing, by being ready,
by its very existence and its demonstrated readiness, is designed to shatter that assumption. It makes the cost of that initial aggression prohibitively immediate.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If we accept that this RDF structure is necessary, what are the concrete consequences the source material identifies as the cost of late arrival? Why is a delay of even a few days so catastrophic?
The sources are really rigorous here. They treat speed as a form of moral and political necessity.
Okay.
Because the 4 guaranteed consequences of late arrival aren't just military setbacks. They're irreversible strategic and human failures that define the entire conflict from that point onward.
Let's start with the most tragic one, the most immediate cost.
The first, and really the most defining, is the certainty of civilian massacres.
Right.
When a state collapses or an invasion kicks off, the very first casualty is law and order. That vacuum, that's what allows for organized violence, ethnic cleansing, or, focused retaliation against defenseless civilian populations.
So if a disciplined, professional, external force doesn't get there,
if it doesn't arrive within the first 24 to 48 hours to secure population centers and establish patrol zones, the human toll is absolute. It's just a fact. Speed, in this context, is simply a life-saving humanitarian mandate.
The RDF doctrine, then, it seems to recognize that if you lose the population in the first few hours,
you've already lost.
You've already lost the moral justification for intervention, regardless of how successful your later military campaign might be.
Precisely. And that humanitarian disaster, it cascades directly into the second major failure, the loss of strategic sites.
So while massacres are the human cost,
seizing strategic sites is the tactical cost that provides the aggressor with unassailable leverage. We're talking about key national assets here.
Like what specifically?
The main international airport, major coastal ports, oil and gas pipelines, or, and this is critical, the National Broadcasting and Communications Center.
The narrative center.
Exactly, the narrative. And once those sites are seized, they become instantly defensible. They turn what could have been a rapid stabilization mission into a prolonged, costly, and resource-intensive siege.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, think about it. If they get the airport, How do you even get your own forces in?
Exactly. Or consider the difficulty of retaking a major operational deep water port. It requires massive, coordinated naval and marine operations. You're risking naval blockades, which carry immense international political and economic risk.
So if the aggressor secures that port first, they control everything.
They control the flow of both their own military reinforcements and all incoming humanitarian aid. They create a new reality on the ground that is immensely difficult, if not cost prohibitive, for any intervening force to reverse. And that leverage is gained purely through those critical hours of delay.
Okay, so the third consequence then details the wider societal breakdown. You're talking about a rapid slide into humanitarian catastrophes.
This moves beyond the targeted violence into just systemic failure.
This sounds logistical.
It is entirely logistical. When the state apparatus is decapitated, the highly complex supply chains that you need to sustain a population of millions, especially in cities, they immediately fracture.
So roads are blocked.
Roads are blocked, energy grids fail, and the distribution of food and water just snaps. It's gone.
Yeah.
If the RDF arrives late, they aren't landing in a military crisis anymore.
No, they're landing in a refugee crisis.
A refugee crisis combined with a widespread medical emergency.
So a delayed RDF is then forced to spend its initial critical resources simply stabilizing a massive logistical and medical nightmare rather than securing the political objectives.
It shifts the entire mission profile. They have to immediately pivot to disease control, mass food distribution, organizing refugee camps. And all of that diverts manpower and resources away from military containment and political mediation. The delay transforms the scale of the required response exponentially.
Which brings us to the final point, the diplomatic dead end. Forced ceasefires on unfavorable terms. This seems like the ultimate political validation of the aggressor's initial speed.
It is. It's the political manifestation of the reality on the battlefield.
Yeah.
If an aggressor, using speed, has successfully seized a significant chunk of territory, say 20%, and the RDF or the international community only shows up after those defensive lines are dug in,
Then what?
then any negotiated peace, any diplomatic resolution has to start from that new disadvantageous reality. The victim is forced to negotiate the return of territory they have already lost.
So the intervening alliance, in effect, risks becoming the legitimizer of aggression.
Yes, because they were too slow to prevent the initial land grab.
So the RDF's whole purpose is to get there fast enough.
To arrive early enough, within that 48-72-hour window, to freeze the lines of contact before significant strategic ground is lost. This is what the source material means when it says this force acts as the ultimate deterrent. The speed ensures that the aggressor never gains the leverage necessary to force a politically damaging outcome.
It makes the goal of the RDF not just military, but deeply political. They have to arrive early, be highly visible to the world, and operate lawfully.
That trio of requirements is what transforms them from an intervening army into a stabilizing authority.
And that legitimacy, it's absolutely non-negotiable, isn't it?
It is. Moving fast without legal sanction immediately poisons the intervention politically. It turns the stabilizing force into an occupying one in the eyes of the host nation and the international community. This insistence on pairing speed with rigorous law, it forms the ethical and political spine of the entire RBF doctrine.
That makes the why crystal clear. But I mean, the operational challenge of maintaining a 48 to 72-hour readiness posture across multiple nations, scattered across continents, that's staggering. How do you even construct a force that is permanently on the edge of deployment?
That requires a radical level of integration far beyond traditional alliances. And this brings us to the structure and composition of the RDF, which is built on this concept of pre-designated high-readiness units.
So this isn't a hypothetical pool of available troops we're talking about.
Not at all.
These are actual units with their gear, their commanding officers, and their training standardized and permanently assigned to the RDF rotation.
Exactly. The source material really emphasizes that this removes the single greatest friction point in coalition warfare.
Which is?
The initial formation and integration period. These dedicated units, they conduct continuous joint training cycles. This ensures that a Turkish platoon leader knows the standard operating procedures of the Pakistani supporting artillery team implicitly. They are already a single fighting force when the crisis erupts.
Okay, let's break down the specialized roles, because the sources detail a very deliberate mix of capabilities. It seems tailored specifically for rapid, decisive entry.
We should, We can begin with the initial shock elements, the airborne brigades. These are designated to be provided by Pakistan and Turkey.
And that's a strategic choice, I assume.
It is. It's leveraging deep institutional competency. Pakistan's and Turkey's historical investment in large-scale paratrooper forces is key here. They have the training and the infrastructure to execute mass personnel drops quickly.
So the airborne's mission is what exactly? Seize and hold?
Seize and hold critical terrain, yeah.
Yeah.
Often securing the drop zone or a forward operating base. They are the initial footprint designed for rapid entry by parachute or immediate air landing. They're trained to operate effectively, if necessary, on just the gear they land with for up to 72 hours before any heavy resupply arrives.
And right behind the paratroopers, you have the air assault units.
Yeah.
The sources say these come from Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
Yes.
What's the tactical distinction here? Airborne versus air assault?
It's the difference between a mass landing and a precision insertion. Think of it this way. Airborne forces seize the main objective, like the airport perimeter.
Right.
Air assault uses rotary wing assets, helicopters, for what's called vertical envelopment. Once that main landing zone is secure, air assault units can rapidly move troops into complex terrain.
Like mountains or cities?
Mountainous areas, urban cores, or other specific non-contiguous objectives. It allows for swift positioning and surrounding of the enemy without having to rely on road networks, which are, likely chaotic or destroyed.
So that lets them exploit the momentum immediately after the initial shock troops land. But if the mission is high stakes, fast, and surgical, you need the smallest, most lethal tools available.
And that's where the special operations elements are integrated. The sources specifically name the Pakistani Special Services Group, the SSG, and the Turkish Special Forces, or SOF. These are not conventional soldiers. They are for highly targeted missions.
For our listeners, when we talk about SSG and Turkish SOFs in this kind of context, what are their dedicated RDF roles?
Their primary roles fall into three critical categories. First, deep reconnaissance.
Scouting targets.
Scouting targets
Yeah.
and relaying real-time intelligence back to the airborne elements. Second is direct action seizing specific high-value choke points like communication relay towers or capturing hostile leadership.
And the third.
Counterterrorism. These elements are dedicated to securing civilian hostage situations instantly. They are the highly flexible tip of the spear, designed to operate with minimal visibility and maximum impact during those critical first 12 hours.
So we have the combat force structured for a sequenced entry. But as the source material stresses over and over, stabilizing a crisis takes more than just firepower. It needs engineering and liaison support.
And this is where the RDF really distinguishes itself from a mere intervention force. The sustainability and the legitimacy of the entire mission rest on the specialized support elements. The two key types are the medical and engineering battalions and the civil military liaison teams.
The engineers. They're arguably the most operationally critical support function in the immediate aftermath of deployment.
Without a doubt. The engineering battalions are immediate infrastructure repair specialists. Think of the scenario. An air assault team needs a clear landing zone, or a heavy transport C-17 needs a runway extension.
They need it now, not tomorrow.
Exactly. These battalions carry specialized, rapid repair equipment, mobile air traffic control, explosive ordnance disposal to clear routes, and heavy earth-moving gear, all of it optimized for rapid airlift. Their job is to ensure that logistical flow, especially air access, remains unimpeded so the heavy follow-on forces can land on schedule. They can turn a rubble-strewn street into a temporary forward operating base.
And then the civil military liaison teams. They manage the most volatile asset in the whole theater, the local population.
The role of these teams is absolutely crucial for legitimacy. They are the bridge between what can be seen as an occupying military force and the distressed host population. They coordinate with local police, community leaders, and international aid organizations.
What's their mission?
It's twofold. First, gather critical local intelligence on factions, movements, and immediate humanitarian needs. Second, ensure that the military presence is seen as supportive, minimizing friction and preventing aid from being weaponized or corrupted. Failure here means the RDF wins the battlefield but loses the peace.
That is a staggering level of integration. Now, for the operational tempo, how do you keep these multinational units constantly at peak performance?
The answer is the Doctrine's mandate. Maintaining a constant 48, 72-hour readiness posture through a rigorous schedule of quarterly rotation.
Walk us through what 48, 72-hour readiness truly entails for a large brigade. I mean, what does that feel like for the soldier on the ground?
It means that every single soldier within that rotational RDF unit lives under the permanent knowledge that they must be packed, their equipment checked, their aircraft manifest confirmed, and ready to move to a staging airfield within 48 to 72 hours of the deployment order. This requires continuous maintenance of all vehicles, immediate access to ammunition depots, and just incredibly high levels of personal fitness and drill proficiency. It is an exhausting state of being.
And the solution to preventing burnout and maintaining that edge is the quarterly rotation.
Precisely. Every 3 months, the assigned units are swapped out. The unit on the high readiness slot rotates out for a mandatory period of recovery, equipment overhaul, and retraining focused on lessons learned.
And a fresh unit cycles in.
A fresh, fully integrated unit cycles in. This logistical tempo-moving and re-equipping 4 rotations a year is a massive undertaking, but it is the non-negotiable insurance policy against exhaustion and the eventual degradation of combat effectiveness.
Okay, that addresses the who and the readiness. Now for the biggest logistical hurdle of all, the how. How do you physically mobilize thousands of soldiers, their weapons, and supporting vehicles across potentially vast distances in under 72 hours?
This is the mobility and lift integration doctrine. It demands pooling the most advanced strategic airlift assets available to the member states. The RDF cannot rely on commercial lift. It needs military heavy transport capable of operating in hostile and unprepared environments.
The sources specifically mention 3 aircraft: the C-17 Globemaster III, the A400M Atlas, and the C-130 Hercules. These 3 have to form the logistical backbone.
They do, and they represent a comprehensive lift strategy. The C-17 is the cornerstone of strategic heavy lift. Its advantage isn't just payload,
Which is
massive. It can carry a main battle tank or multiple armored vehicles. But its real advantage is its range and its ability to operate from short, semi-prepared runways.
Meaning the C-17 can bypass the most secure but likely seized international airports and land in a rough strip airfield closer to the action. That shortens the operational response time.
Exactly. It's the strategic bridge. Then you have the A400M Atlas, which is the bridge between strategic and tactical. While it offers heavy lift capability comparable to the C-17, its unique advantage is the ability for tactical insertion and, crucially, aerial refueling.
So the A400M offers the potential for nonstop missions across vast distances. It allows the RDF to strike targets deep inland without needing secure intermediate refueling points.
It provides the flexibility to deliver key personnel and equipment right into the tactical theater, even dropping cargo mid-flight if the landing zones are unsecured. It gives the commanders more options in those critical first 48 hours.
And finally, the C-130, the tactical stalwart.
The workhorse. While it's slower and smaller, it is the persistent transport necessary for operations within the theater. It's the truck of the sky.
So the C-130 is the workhorse for moving troops between forward operating bases, handling continuous resupply, and crucially, running the medevac missions once the forces are on the ground.
And its rugged design means it can land on virtually any surface spurt, sand, or snow, providing the persistent logistical continuity necessary to sustain the fight until the sea lift arrives. By pooling these assets, the RDF ensures high-capacity movement combined with maximum operational flexibility.
You keep mentioning sea lift. And while airlift is fast, it simply cannot move the sheer bulk of armor and supplies needed for a prolonged engagement.
Airlift is for the decisive initial intervention. Sea lift is for sustained power projection. To maintain the stability gained by the airborne elements, you need tanks, heavy artillery, fuel depots, and enough food and ammunition for weeks of operation. This heavy tonnage necessitates maritime transport.
So the doctrine hinges on the light forces, the airborne brigades, securing a major deepwater port, or at least a section of the coastline suitable for offloading, within that initial 72-hour window.
That success is the trigger for the sea lift. The engineering battalions are immediately tasked with surveying and repairing port facilities. If the initial force can secure the infrastructure, the heavy armor and sustained logistics packages can start arriving on day 4 or 5.
Which transitions the mission.
It transitions the mission from rapid stabilization to durable containment.
And to cut down on all transit time, both air and sea, the reliance on prepositioning is paramount.
Pre-positioned stocks minimize the transit time of the actual materials. The RDF strategy involves maintaining secure, internationally monitored warehouses near potential flashpoints. These stocks include immediate essentials, fuel bladders, standardized alliance ammunition, field hospital components, and initial humanitarian aid packages.
So instead of a C-17 having to fly 1,000 miles with fuel, They can fly troops in, land, and refuel immediately from the pre-positioned stocks already near the theater.
It shaves critical hours off the clock. Now, it requires significant political capital getting host nations to agree to host foreign military supplies on their soil, and a massive financial commitment to maintain those secure, climate-controlled facilities. But it is the logistical lubricant that makes the RDF's rapid response clock run smoothly.
This entire mobility philosophy is summarized in the doctrine's core principle: light first, heavy follow.
The airborne and SOF elements are the light first. Their mission is speed, surprise, and securing the immediate critical nodes. They are the scalpel. They secure the airfields and the ports.
And the heavy follow is the hammer.
It's the hammer. It's the armor, the tanks, the sustained artillery, and the bulk logistics arriving via strategic airlift and sea lift.
This balancing act is crucial, though. The light force is exposed for a period, banking on the speed of the follow-up.
They are. The light force holds the bridgehead, relying entirely on their training, their internal supply from the pre-positioned stocks, and continuous Allied air cover. The doctrine specifies that the heavy follow must be initiated simultaneously with the light deployment.
So you don't wait for success.
You can't. Even if the heavy assets take longer to arrive, the process of mobilization cannot wait for confirmation of the initial force's success. It has to be a non-stop, pre-planned sequence.
Now, let's shift to the most politically challenging aspect of all this. Speed without rules is just recklessness. If a force is designed to move this fast, the legal and political framework must be absolutely rigorous to maintain global trust.
This is the crux of the Rules of Engagement and Operational Legitimacy section, and the source material is very clear. RDF deployments are politically authorized collective defense actions, not unilateral military ventures.
How does the alliance manage the political friction that's just inherent in multinational operations?
By establishing several core constraints up front. The first, and arguably the most difficult to achieve, is the creation of pre-approved rules of engagement, or ROE.
This seems incredibly difficult for an alliance composed of different sovereign nations. Each has its own domestic legal framework, its own interpretations of international law. How did the strategists propose overcoming the legal hurdles of harmonizing ROE?
It takes months, if not years, of negotiation to standardize protocols across all the member states. Nations have fundamentally different views on when lethal force can be authorized, particularly in situations involving non-uniform combatants or dense urban environments.
So what's the solution?
The RDF must adopt the most stringent, the most conservative ROE that is legally acceptable to all contributing members. This preemptive standardization eliminates the need for commanders on the ground to waste critical hours seeking clarification from their home capitals during a fast-moving crisis. It grants tactical freedom while imposing strategic constraint.
So the pre-approved ROE is a non-negotiable requirement for inclusion in the RDF rotation. You can't play if you don't agree to the rules beforehand.
Absolutely. The second crucial constraint deals with diplomatic necessity, host nation consent, or an emergency mandate. The intervention cannot be perceived as an invasion.
But what happens if the crisis is a coup d'etat and the legitimate government that invited the RDF is no longer in power when the force arrives?
That is the ultimate test. The doctrine requires strict adherence to either a clear invitation from a recognized legitimate government verified by the Supreme Allied Command, or a clear mandate from a globally recognized international body, usually the UN Security Council or the General Assembly, defining a clear humanitarian or regional security threat.
And if neither of those conditions are met?
The RDF deployment is aborted. Regardless of speed, regardless of how ready they are, this constraint ensures that the force maintains political capital and avoids becoming a party to an internal political dispute.
This ties directly into the third requirement: primacy of civilian protection. This isn't just a moral point. It's operational.
It is essential. The doctrine makes civilian protection the single overriding tactical objective. This constraint means that commanders must accept tactical disadvantages, such as not using certain heavy fire support or delaying an assault, if the action risks disproportionate civilian casualties.
And what's the operational benefit of being so strict about this?
Operational legitimacy. I mean, if the local population sees the RDF forces prioritize their safety, the RDF gains access to vital local intelligence, non-hostile lines of communication, and local resources. They win the hearts and minds necessary to transition from a military intervention to long-term stabilization. It turns the population from passive bystanders into active allies.
And all this is underpinned by the fourth constraint:
Correct.
absolute international humanitarian law compliance.
Every soldier, every commander must operate strictly within the bounds of the Geneva Conventions and established laws of war, and this is maintained through continuous shared training across all nationalities. Procedures for handling detainees, treating captured combatants, and ensuring medical neutrality must be identical across the Turkish, Pakistani, and Saudi contingents. This framework ensures speed without recklessness, cementing the RDF's status as a stabilizing power.
The legal framework is as robust as the armored vehicles they deploy. Okay, let's transition into the specific operational planning. The source material moves beyond general doctrine and outlines 4 distinct crisis scenarios, detailing the RDF's programmed response with precision. This is where the RDF's flexibility really shines.
These scenarios prove that the RDF is not a hammer looking for a nail. It's a multi-tool designed for a diverse threat environment.
Let's start with Scenario A, threat to a holy site. This requires immediate, culturally sensitive, and highly visible deployment.
The threat here is twofold. The physical destruction of an irreplaceable cultural or religious artifact, and the political and religious crisis that such an action would trigger globally. The response blueprint is immediate and intense. The RDF must secure the perimeter within 12 hours.
12 hours, that's half the standard readiness window. That dictates a rapid-fire deployment of the absolute fastest assets, likely specialized SOF elements and small airborne insertion teams.
The timeline reflects the fact that the seizure or destruction of a holy site is an immediate political detonator. Once that perimeter is secure, the doctrine calls for immediate activation of air defense and surveillance. This is crucial to neutralize any hostile air threat that might seek to bomb the site or prevent the RDF from reinforcing.
And a surveillance piece.
Constant surveillance, often using drones and satellite assets, ensures transparency of operation and deters external interference.
What about the importance of the guaranteed humanitarian access mandate in this scenario?
It's the balance check. Protecting the site cannot result in a siege that starves the local community. The RDF has to establish specific, secured corridors for aid and civilian movement, demonstrating that their mission is protection and stabilization, not martial law.
Okay, Scenario B deals with the ultimate political crisis, sudden coup or internal collapse. This is about preventing a power vacuum from turning into civil war.
The response shifts to institutional protection. The immediate objective is securing government facilities, protection central banks, presidential palaces, parliament buildings, and critically, the national communications grid. If the hostile faction controls the national media or the financial system, they have already won the narrative.
The swift seizure and protection of those facilities prevents the hostile faction from projecting immediate state authority.
Concurrently, the RDF has to manage the inevitable external panic. They prioritize establishing evacuation corridors. These are internationally recognized safe routes for citizens, diplomats, and foreign nationals to flee the unstable area.
Heavily secured, I'm assuming.
Heavily secured and visible, allowing diplomatic personnel to safely extract and reducing the risk of a widespread hostage situation. And crucially, the RDF provides mediation support.
What does that mean in practice?
The RDF physically creates and defends a neutral zone, a visible security shield, to allow political or diplomatic mediation efforts to proceed safely, often involving regional leaders or international envoys. Without the secure bubble, negotiations just break down under the chaos and the threat of assassination or kidnapping.
Now for Scenario C, the natural disaster. This requires a completely different mindset, moving from combat readiness to rapid medical logistics.
And the doctrine reflects that shift by demanding an even faster response time. Medical teams airborne in 6 hours.
6 hours. That speaks volumes about the priority given to life-saving missions.
In a disaster like a major earthquake, the first 72 hours are called the golden window for search, rescue, and trauma surgery. The RDF's specialized medical teams, equipped with mobile field hospitals and specialized triage units, must be the first responders, arriving before the full military force. The priority is immediate trauma care and public health stabilization.
And the immediate follow-on is the engineers.
The engineers' restore access doctrine is instant. They are utilizing heavy lift to bring in specialized equipment designed to clear debris, establish temporary air traffic control for incoming aid planes, and rapidly repair damaged bridges and roads.
So they open the arteries.
They open the logistical arteries so that mass humanitarian aid can flow unimpeded. The RDF then works to stabilize aid distribution, preventing the desperate situation from being exploited by looters or organized crime.
And finally, Scenario D, border flare-up. This is the peace enforcement scenario, managing tensions between two sovereign neighbors.
This is perhaps the most politically delicate mission of them all. The core objective is interposition. The RDF physically inserts itself as a neutral, heavily armed buffer zone between the two competing forces. This physical separation cools the immediate tensions and prevents the accidental escalation that often triggers full-scale war.
This requires impeccable discipline and neutrality from the RDF forces to avoid being perceived as supporting one side over the other.
Absolutely. Their actions must be transparent and strictly neutral. Once they're interposed, they establish monitoring and verification. They set up observation posts, use high-definition surveillance assets, and run continuous patrols to verify compliance with any ceasefire or de-escalation agreement. They become the eyes and ears of the political process, providing the objective, real-time facts needed to sustain fragile peace talks.
These scenarios truly demonstrate the breadth of the RDF's mandate, spanning high-intensity combat, diplomatic security, and humanitarian relief. But none of this happens without an ironclad leadership structure. How is this high-tempo, politically complex, multinational force managed day to day?
Well, the success or failure of the RDF depends entirely on its command and sustainment framework. The structure dictates that the RDF reports directly to the Supreme Allied Command.
And why is that centralized command structure so non-negotiable for a force like this?
Because national loyalty or political interference is the death of multinational speed. Centralized command provides unity of effort. It ensures that assets are allocated based purely on tactical necessity and strategic objectives, rather than being beholden to the political whims of a contributing capital. It ensures that the RDF speaks with one voice and moves with one coordinated strategy.
But pure centralization can be slow, can't it?
Yeah.
If they need to react in 6 hours, they can't wait for a commander thousands of miles away to confirm every fire mission.
That's a great point. And that is why the doctrine incorporates the concept of regional tasking authority. This grants local field commanders, operating within defined geographical areas, the necessary autonomy to react instantly to immediate tactical shifts, unforeseen threats, or opportunities.
So what are the specific powers granted to these regional commanders?
They possess the authority for immediate resource reallocation, target selection within the pre-approved ROE, and the power to activate local logistical support chains without needing express permission from the Supreme Allied Command. They are empowered to execute the mission at the required speed.
But they're still accountable.
Their actions are under continuous digital surveillance and accountability to the Central Command, ensuring they operate within the legal constraints established prior to deployment.
Okay, turning to sustainment. Keeping forces on rotation and supplied under such intense pressure, that's a major logistical feat in itself.
Logistical preparedness must match combat readiness. The system relies heavily on rotating logistics packages. Just like the combat units, the entire logistical supply chain from ammunition specialists to fuel handlers is constantly maintained on that 48-72-hour readiness clock and rotates quarterly.
This ensures that when the combat brigade deploys, the logistical teams supporting them are fresh, fully maintained, and ready to follow, preventing a supply bottleneck on day 4.
And it ensures specialized skills are available. Crucially, the doctrine mandates a shared medical evacuation medevac system. This is a pooled resource of specialized fixed-wing and rotary-wing medical aircraft, staffed by multinational, trauma-certified teams.
This standardizes medical response across the entire alliance then. So if an SSG soldier is wounded in an area commanded by a Turkish general, the medevac system responds seamlessly.
It guarantees the highest standard of care instantly, regardless of nationality, which is vital for morale and operational continuity. The system includes shared protocols for trauma surgery, pooled multinational blood banks, and standardized tactical evacuation procedures, the whole 9 yards.
And finally, the strategic protection required to allow the light forces to hold the line. Allied air cover.
If the light forces are the scalpel, the air cover is the shield. The alliance pools its air superiority assets, fighter jets, and close air support attack helicopters to provide continuous air patrols and real-time support over the RDF forces on the ground.
This gives ground commanders the confidence to deploy rapidly, knowing that hostile armor or large enemy formations can be neutralized quickly from above before they can overwhelm the initial lightly armed forces.
Continuous air superiority is the final layer of protection that allows the Light First doctrine to function. It buys the critical time necessary for the heavy follow to arrive via sea and strategic air.
We have completed a detailed deep dive into the strategic architecture of this rapid deployment force blueprint, as presented by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir in episode 36 of The Nuclear Umbrella. It is an incredibly detailed, ambitious vision focused entirely on countering strategic inertia.
It is the ultimate expression of the alliance's core operational principle. Speed saves lives and prevents wars. By meticulously combining specialized multinational units, centralized command that allows for tactical speed, and a legally rigorous framework, the RDF aims to fundamentally change the dynamics of regional crisis response.
The ultimate takeaway here is that the RDF becomes the ultimate deterrent by fundamentally shifting the strategic equation. The ability to establish stabilizing authority in hours means the alliance is present before chaos hardens into conflict.
Potential aggressors no longer have the luxury of that 72-hour window. The immediate arrival changes the strategic calculus. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the most complex challenge laid out in the source material isn't the logistics of the C-17s or the synchronization of the SSG.
What is the real test of this entire system, then?
The real test is the political will required to sustain the operational rigor. The success of the RDF doesn't rely solely on its military might. It relies on the capacity of member states to truly cede operational control to a unified, supreme allied command when the clock starts ticking.
So every nation has to trust the central command.
Every component nation must maintain trust in that centralized command, allowing their national assets to be deployed instantly into politically sensitive scenarios without bureaucratic interference from their home capitals. That commitment, that willingness to relinquish a piece of sovereignty for the sake of speed, that is the true revolutionary element of this multinational force.
Yeah. That political commitment is the highest hurdle any alliance ever faces. It is fascinating to see such a detailed military blueprint acknowledge that its success hinges entirely on political unity.
Without that unity, speed is impossible, and the RDF remains a brilliant but ultimately ineffective paper doctrine.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the role of rapid intervention forces in global stability. We encourage you to reflect on the immense political sacrifice required to achieve strategic speed. We'll see you next time.